Welcome to Just a Thought, a podcast for misfits who've turned self-reflection into a lifestyle. Around here, we get into the messy stuff, mental health, connection, and the daily chaos of being a human being. It's kind of like therapy, but with some sarcasm and fewer co-pays. I'm your host, Purple Energy, and every week we'll obsess over one subject we know best, ourselves. Because if you're going to spiral, why not make it about yourself? This is Just a Thought. I'm Purple Energy, and the first episode is where I'll start with my truth. I used to think I had everything figured out. I was the girl with the plan, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. And somewhere along the way, I found myself fighting to hold on to my sense of self. I was the girl with a plan, honey, and big dreams. But I first fell in love with structure. My grandmother is a Southern Baptist, honey. And just like all Southern Baptists, church is a staple and structure is the foundation. We knew every Thursday, like clockworks, we was having Bible study at 6 p.m. sharp. If my grandmother had enough for the fellow members that would come and gather with us, she made enough food for them, dinner was served at 6 p.m. But if she didn't, we as a family ate at 5 p.m. sharp. No excuses, no exceptions. We knew on Sunday we was up at 4 a.m. in the morning. Why? We had 7 people in 2 bathrooms. And our church was an hour away. Also, my grandmother was a deaconess, so she was responsible for picking up people along the way. So let's just say Sunday was a pretty full day for our household. And so that's where I learned structure and waking up knowing what my day was going to be about, because we were planned the night before. And so when we wake up the next day, we already had plans of what we were going to do. There was no scatterness. There was no unsureness. You knew because grandma came up with that schedule and you had your to-do list of what you were going to be doing that day. Even on a Saturday, we knew like clockworks, honey. They are going to go to ShopRite to go grocery shopping while us kids stayed in the house and cleaned. It better be done before they get there so we can go ahead and go outside and play. So that was our favorite things to do, right? Having the structure. Just like you, I'm pretty sure your parents asked you, what were you going to do when you grow up? Who do you want to be? What do you want to become, right? We all must know this becoming before we becoming. Where we just want to go outside and play and ride our bikes and jump double dutch. We had to come up with a plan of what we wanted to be. Instead of just being a kid and learning how to just play and be in that moment. When they asked me what I wanted to be, I knew I wanted to be an obstetricianist. I was so fascinated with the Birth Channel show. It was where they had live birthings on television. It was the first time I saw midwives and doulas working in collaboration with the doctors in the hospitals. It was the first time that I saw a birthing center where women can go and have this space like a mini luxury resort for birthing centers. You have your doula, you have your midwife, and they're singing and you're in the pool. They made it look so cool that I was like, I am going to do this. This is what I want to be. I am going to school for this. And so when I got to college, I was like, I am going to be an obstetricianist. Well, lo and behold, they told me it takes 8 years. And my mind was like, honey, what? 8 years? That's a lot of schooling. I had to change my plan just slightly. So I said, okay, how can I get to this route without getting to this route in this amount of time? And then I thought to myself, I could be a midwife. Why? Because that's what I saw on TV. That's what I went to school for. And then we had this transition happen where you could no longer just apply to your classes. You had to meet with an advisor. Now, meanwhile, I am 2 years into schooling. It's my sophomore year. I'm going into my junior year. And they're telling me what classes you want to take because this is my last semester. And I'm going to be going into my junior year. And then the advisor said to me, well, who told you to take these classes? And I was like, oh, this is the curriculum that they gave me. And so she was like, honey, we don't have midwife here. I understand that you have taken a lot of these classes, but we don't have this. So you might have to think about what do you want to do from here or go to another school that has midwife. That was the first time that life threw me a curveball that I was not expecting. And I had to think, and I mean quick, because I had all these credits, I had all this money that I had spent, and I was like, well, how do I get to where I want to be? I had no idea. And it's not like I can call home and ask my mother, hey, what to do, because she dropped out of college. She didn't know. I was left to figure this out on my own. The beginning of a new happened, and I wasn't expecting it. I could not, I'm telling you, there was no planning or prepping for what was to come, but I was still trying to make this thing happen. So I thought to myself, okay, well, let me go to a community college and me see what I can do here, and somehow they can try to get me on the right path. And I remember the advisor saying to me, why don't you take this career course? Like, it's like a test. It's like Myers-Briggs, but it's for college education. And I was like, okay. And so it spit back to you based on your questionnaire. It spits back to you what possible career fields that you can go into. And the top two, ironically, was finance and accounting. And I was like, I couldn't see myself being an accountant. That seems kind of boring. I was like, finance, okay. Money, I like money. I could see me doing charts and stuff because, why? I'm a planner. And so I proceeded to go down this new path. As I said, it was definitely different. It was a lot of unknowns in this transitions. And it was a lot of things that was unexpected along the way as I was transitioning. Not only was I transitioning my major, but I was transitioning schools, because I felt like, why spend my money at a place that waited this long to tell me that they didn't offer my curriculum? Why continue to spend my money at an organization that didn't tell me the truth from the beginning? So I had to now look into another institution that can now funnel this new career path that I was paving out as I was going, because I knew nothing about it. And so I did. I made the transition. I switched to another school, completely 45 minutes, maybe to an hour from my house. And I proceeded to go down this path of life. And then I got my degree. It was very exciting. When I tell you, it was an emotional high that you could never pay for. It's just you being in that moment, experiencing the celebration, the hard work, your effort, your time, your dedication, and your commitment to see that thing through. It was really euphoria all in one, and I loved every moment of it. But then life happened again. I was graduating at a time where the stock market was blah, and people who had experience couldn't find a job. And here I was, no experience, didn't know how to write a resume, a cover letter, anything. And I was once again forced to figure out what life entailed for me in this moment. I can't say that I put on my big girl panties, honey. Not immediately. Complained and I cried. And I asked the universe, why me? Why is this happening to me? What is this trying to tell me? I just remembered, just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I gotta do this. This is way before ChatGPT. We had computers, but we didn't have ChatGPT that can write a resume. So, as always, the planner in me, I decided to figure out, what do I need first to stand out? And that was write a resume and figure out how to do a cover letter. Cover letters made no sense to me because I was like, it's a mini version of a resume. So let me start a resume first. And I proceeded to build out my resume. Once I had a handle on a resume, I said, okay, let me try this cover letter thing. And when I tell you, I had so many failed attempts. I mean, it's so many failed attempts. It was just so many. But either way, I went on, I had this resume, and I'm like, I'm going out here and I am going to do what I have to do to build something for myself. And that's what I did. I figured out every step of the way as I took one step at a time. And it was not easy, but somehow in that moment, the level of drive, ambition that you have when you're first getting out of school, I mean, it's like if God himself told you you couldn't win, you would stand back in his face and say, you a liar, because I am going to win. That's how much ambition you have at a young age, where you're just moving and growing. You just don't see things as this, it can't be done. It's, I'm going to complain, but it still can be done. But what happens when even that life comes and throws you another curveball along the way. How do you sustain? How do you manage? Who do you turn to cope? And how do you process your emotions? For me, I wasn't really big into processing my emotions. I was like, I don't have time for emotions. I ain't got time to cry, baby. I got time to put on my big girl panties and get the moving. Now, I can complain along the way, but sis is going to get up and go. Because all I have is a moment that I have today. And so therefore, I can complain while I'm going. My hands and feet is moving. Why? Because it's what I saw my grandmother do. It's what I saw my aunt do. It is what I saw my mother do. They just got up and moved. Never processing, never slowing down, never thinking how is this making them feel or how are they being perceived from the outside world. They just got up and they did. And so, like most of you that are probably listening, you know a woman who just moved, or you know a sister that just moved, or your mother who may have just moved. And life was just moving and they made it look so eloquently, so easy, so flawless. But was it really? Was it really as simple as a cape being around their neck? Was it as easy as just getting up when they felt tiredness in their body? Was it as easy to make meals knowing that they had to go to a shift when this was all over? Was it easy knowing that they had pain in their body, knowing that their heart were broken and that they were raising a family all on their own? I wonder. I had no idea what it meant to be a young professional going out there knowing that your family doesn't have these resources, but you're making the resources essentially come to you by moving forward. Sometimes feeling scared, uncertain, sometimes feeling frightened, sometimes even feeling ashamed because you put so much pressure on yourself, thinking like, am I ever going to do this? Am I good enough? Will it happen? But yet you're moving. I just remember I'm learning how to do resumes and I'm moving and I'm going. And as I'm doing those things, I'm helping people along the way because like all good analysts, I need to test my theory, not only just on myself, but on someone else, because that lets me know I'm doing the right thing, right? And so that's what I did. I would help others do their resume. I wouldn't charge them anything. I would prep them on interview. Mock interviews was my thing. I would put myself in front of a camera and I was moving forward. And so I was helping everyone else along the way. But as I'm moving and as I'm walking and as I'm what felt like I was running, no one stopped and looked. No one held their hand back. No one thought to ask, hey, are you okay? No one thought to say, hey, do you need help? Hey, let me send you this job. Hey, let me connect you to this person. While I'm doing all these things for them, I had no one doing that for me. And then I watch people get married. I watch friends move away. I watch friends get their career stable and steady. All the while, it felt like I was moving in place and life was just happening to me, not for me, but to me. And I felt enraged, livid, angry, wondering, reach back and do the same. I was not okay with people taking my resources, but then not paying it forward to someone else. I wasn't okay with somebody occupying my space because they needed it, but then they would not provide the same space for me to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be myself, to cry, to hear me. Even when they didn't make space for me, I still was crying to them in a different way. It may not have been disheveledness of physical tears or my hair misplaced or my appearance being altered, but I would use my words and I would say, hey, I didn't have a great day today, or someone said something to me today that really bothered me and it didn't sit well with me and I'm really wrestling with this thing. I was dating someone and I would say to him, oh, I didn't get this job and I just feel off, like something about this. I feel like there's a shift inside of me and I'm not really liking myself in this moment. And the person who I loved, who I helped, would return back and say to me, well, you're just being spoiled. You're really just being uncomfortable and mad because things didn't happen the way that you wanted them to. You're spoiled. And because things don't happen the way you wanted to, then you want to throw a hissy fit. And so I sucked it up. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to move on. And I moved 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 I didn't say anything. I moved on. Why? Because it was what I was accustomed to doing. Moving on, not feeling, not processing, but moving on. And so that's what I did. And then one day I was speaking to my aunt, who I call Bunny, and I'm sitting down with her. We have these tea time where we sipping tea. I have my tea, she has her coffee, and we're filling each other in on what's happening in each other's life. And I'm just telling her about how I'm feeling on the inside, and I'm like, I don't feel like myself. I feel like something is off, and I just really can't name what it is. I feel sad, but I know that I'm still moving. And sometimes I can't feel sad. I don't feel anything. I feel emotionless. I feel like there is no hope. And then my aunt would say, like the Christian she is, did you call on Jesus? Did you pray? And I'm like, Auntie, yes, of course. Why would you think I didn't pray? Why would you speak to me so cavalierly, not realizing that I didn't think to ask the one thing that we are trained to do, right? Which is pray. Of course I did. And then one day she said to me, honey, I believe you have depression. And I said, what? Excuse me? Say what now? She said, yes, you might have depression. These are signs of depression that what you're going through. And I said, Bunny, listen to me. You better talk to Jesus. Because I ain't got time for depression. I just need my career to move in a way which makes sense to me, which feels comfortable to me. What is normal to everybody else? Why is mine being so scattered and scarce and sporadic while everybody else is moving simultaneously? I need you to talk to God instead of telling me that I have depression. And so, of course, we laughed. But something happened. I didn't brush it away. I researched. As I said, I'm a structured person. I'm organized. I like logic. Emotion psychology, emotional intelligence isn't logic. So I had to learn something about myself that I knew nothing about. I can convey when I was upset. I can convey when I was feeling sad. I can convey when I had enough. But never did I expect to be what they consider a high functioning depression, because I wasn't on the floor crying. That was my mind of a depressed person, a person who was non-functioning and that would sit in the house and cry. And that was far from me. Actually, the last time that I cried, I was 16. That's how much me and crying didn't even mix. I refused to cry because I saw crying as a sign of weakness. I never saw my grandmother cry. I never saw my mother cry. So I didn't think it was okay for me to cry. If they did cry, it was at a funeral. That was the one time I did see my grandmother and mother be vulnerable, was when my father passed away. That was the only time that I saw these two women cry. And so me and crying didn't make sense. We wasn't even on the same side. And so I had to come to terms with, I had depression. I had to come to terms with that something was off kilter to the one who has a plan for a plan. I had to come to terms with that in this moment, I did not know myself. I had to come to terms with that I needed to love myself in a different way in this season. And I had no idea of how to do that. I wasn't a psychologist. I knew nothing about psychology. I mean, I did take some classes in college, but not enough to be like, yes, I know what it means to be depressed. But like all things, I had to figure it out. That's it for this week's episode of Just a Thought. Thank you for thinking out loud with me. If something hit home, made you laugh, or made you feel just a little less alone, share it with a fellow misfit. And remember, your thoughts aren't always facts, but they are worth exploring. Until next time, keep obsessing responsibly.